Following their final preseason game against the Carolina Panthers, the Pittsburgh Steelers face some tough decisions. Their final 53-man roster has witnessed countless competitions across the depth chart, and certain situations are solving themselves. With training camp and most of the preseason process behind them, their final decisions are starting to become evident. While some choices regarding the roster construction have become crystal clear, others still have time to alter course. The Steelers could change their minds with the final roster spots to complete the team based on the outcome of the game against the Panthers. Pittsburgh is running out of time to decide, and there are roster bubble players who must ball out to get into the conversation. Pittsburgh Steelers on the roster bubble who must put on a show in preseason finale. Robert Woods, WR. It appeared obvious that Robert Woods would stick on the 53-man roster for the Steelers, but the opposite has happened. It seems more likely that the veteran gets cut rather than staying around town. He hasn't done anything special at training camp and has only caught one pass through 2 games this preseason. Time is running out in a hurry for the 12-year NFL veteran. Not all is lost for the former star receiver. He has a path to make this team, but he must produce a strong outing against Carolina. There are no guarantees that the coaching staff is as critical of Woods' lack of preseason success as others. He could have a safer roster spot than many projects. Realistically, he should be concerned about his chances of making the team due to his lack of playmaking ability. Sebastian Castro, S. This past weekend was a strong bounce back for Sebastian Castro, but the undrafted safety has more ground to gain. Entering the NFL as an undrafted player makes it harder to reach a 53-man roster. Having a transition period makes it more difficult. Castro started slow at training camp and extended that into the preseason. Hopefully for him, something clicked last game. Pittsburgh could be persuaded to keep an extra player at the position if Castro proves himself. They have Deshaun Elliott, Chuck Clark, Juan Thornhill, and Miles Killebrew in front of him on the pecking order. The odds are still stacked against the defensive back, but not as much as before. If he can have a fantastic finish to the preseason, he can get back into the roster conversation. Dylan Cook, OT. There is a persistent issue along the offensive line that could lead to chaos if injuries occur. They need some upgrades up front, but the Steelers might need to rely on what they have. Dylan Cook is someone who has been with the team for a while, but he hasn't been able to stick on the field due to performance and injuries. The former undrafted offensive tackle has seen work at both sides at training camp and could become a backup swing tackle if needed. Pittsburgh has Calvin Anderson as their top backup, but neither he nor Cook has been terrific. The roster bubble player has a chance to make the team and potentially earn a significant role with a strong preseason finale. While there are a good chunk of NFL teams on thin ice at the quarterback position, the Pittsburgh Steelers might have the inside track on having the most precarious situation of all. In Pittsburgh, where they've made the playoffs 4 of the last 5 seasons, head coach Mike Tomlin has put all of his eggs in the Aaron Rodgers basket in the hopes the 41-year-old, four-time NFL MVP, has one last good-to-great season left in him. If Rodgers goes down, there's not much faith in the quarterbacks waiting in the wings with Mason Rudolph, Skylar Thompson, and rookie Will Howard, who seemed like he was in line to be QB2 but fractured his hand during training camp. For a team like the Steelers, with an elite defense and elite skill position players, having the most important position on the field simultaneously be the weakest position group on the field isn't ideal. The thing is, it doesn't have to stay like that. Trade pitch sends Eagles backup QB to Steelers. Heavy's Max Dybul put forth a trade proposal that sends the Steelers immediate quarterback help, with up-and-coming Philadelphia Eagles backup quarterback Tanner McKee shipped to Pittsburgh in exchange for a third-round pick. Mina Kimes and Ben Solak raved about McKee, saying he can run just about any offense in the NFL and is good enough to be an NFL starter right now, Dybul said. His experience is minimal, but he was excellent in 2 games played and 1 start last season, and Kimes said he looked like a veteran in preseason Game 1 against the Bengals earlier this month. Philly values the position, and McKee has starting chops, so a day 2 pick is what Solak said was the floor of what the Eagles should accept from any team. The Steelers know Aaron Rodgers is leaving after the season, and Will Howard is their only chance at a long-term answer currently on the roster. If a third-round pick gets it done, then it should get done. For the Eagles and general manager Howie Roseman, It's easy to assume getting a third-round pick back in exchange for McKee, a 2023 sixth-round pick, would be too good of an offer to pass up. McKee's trade value continues to rise. The Eagles have figured out a way to evaluate quarterbacks that probably needs to be studied. They're coming off a season in which starter Jalen Hurts ascended, capping the year off with Hurts being named Super Bowl MVP in a 40-22 win over the Kansas City Chiefs. After Hurts suffered a concussion in a Week 16 loss to the Washington Commanders, backup quarterback Kenny Pickett started in Week 17 against the Dallas Cowboys, but was knocked out of the game when he injured his ribs. McKee, 6'6" and 231 pounds, stepped in and threw 2 touchdown passes in the second half to beat the Cowboy. The next week, he started the regular season finale against the New York Giants and led the Eagles to a 20-13 victory. In essentially 5 quarters of action last year, McKee went 30 of 45 passing for 323 yards, 4 touchdowns and no interceptions, numbers that make him an appealing and cheap trade option for QB-needy teams. Prior to Week 1 kicking off, we have already seen multiple trades take place, and even more have been whispered about. The Pittsburgh Steelers could afford to add just one more piece to their offense at this point for Aaron Rodgers and company, and there's one that makes too much sense. For months now, the Green Bay Packers have seen wide receiver Romeo due in trade whispers and rumors. At this point, if the two sides open discussions, there's a deal that makes too much sense for both sides. Considering this is Aaron Rodgers' last hurrah, the Steelers have to go all in. And instead of going after a washed-up Randall Cobb in free agency or Allen Lazard in New York, snagging Due from Green Bay makes a lot of sense. The Pittsburgh Steelers need to make a deal happen for Romeo, Due, because it makes too much sense. This trade simply makes way too much sense not to happen. From the Steelers' perspective, they are getting a wide receiver who could step in and be the team's WR2 or WR3 right away. More importantly, Due is somebody Rodgers trusts and has praised many times in the past when they were together in Green Bay. Additionally, Due would be better than some other rumored targets in recent days. From Green Bay's side of things, Due is in a contract year, and the Packers just spent 2 early draft picks on Matthew Golden and Savion Williams. They also have to make a decision on Christian Watson and the future of Dontavian Wicks. There are too many cooks in the kitchen, you could say. Due has flashed the ability to make big plays in the past, with Rodgers showcasing some back-shoulder fade talent and eye-popping end-zone grabs here and there. He hasn't fully blossomed just yet as a pro, but in Pittsburgh and next to a top-tier talent like DK Metcalf, Due would be the perfect complement. A 6th-rounder for a guy who probably won't be in Green Bay after this season could be enough to force the Packers to finally part ways. From Pittsburgh's end, it's an absolute steal. Now, is it too little of a return for Green Bay? Maybe so. If the two sides had to agree on upping it to a 5th-rounder, that would suffice as well.